Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Professional Genealogist Reacts live stream. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger. Always wonderful to have a bunch of you people here. And it looks like we've got a pretty good crowd starting out. A lot of comments and stuff. So we'll just be jumping right into it. I had a little bit of a hiccup in getting started today, just because was having some issues with my audio. So I had to run downstairs and grab the microphone I usually use for recording for the live stream today. So hopefully the audio sounds good. I'm going to kind of keep an eye out, make sure, see if anyone says any issues with the audio, but hopefully it should sound good because according to the levels I'm seeing, it should be. Let's see, let's get that set up there. I saw this first question already. Are you aware of any online resources for searches in El Salvador? And not personally, but there's an easy thing to pull up, which I pulled up already. So I'm going to pull that up and leave that here for you while I go through my greetings. So something to check out. This is just the family search wiki with El Salvador online genealogy records. So I threw that in the chat. But now let's actually go through the chat because that's the only I saw yours. And then I was like, oh, my mic's not working. Let me get that. So, all right. Julia Joyce, greetings from North Baddesley, England. Hello, Julia. Always wonderful to have you. Bryce Gardner, hello. Thanks for joining again, Bryce. Maven, still at work, yo. Well, wonderful to have you, Maven. Guess I'm on in the background for you. Andrea, you made it. Hiya, small update from my genealogy class. We're deep in the weeds of learning about probates this week. Awesome. Probates are such a useful set of records, because there's so much to them. They're obviously very different all over the place, but then, you can get a lot of really in-depth family information from those. So very cool, very cool. Maven, taking a look at WikiTree this stream or saving it for a surprise at the end. So I'm not going to be looking at WikiTree, but I'll do a quick mention of that. And I guess, let's see if I can bring it up here. So I am the WikiTree challenge this week. So let's make that bigger. So basically WikiTree, which is a collaborative family tree, meaning that they build one singular world family tree where everything connects into it. So there's only one profile for each person in the tree. And so they do a challenge every week or every month, or I don't know. It used to be every week, but it looks like it's kind of more every month now. But either way, the challenge is different things. So I was a challenge guest in 2021 where basically it was them building out my family tree. And I had a very basic tree on WikiTree. While I do like WikiTree, I'm much more of a Genie fan for the collaborative trees. So my tree on Genie was extremely built out. And on WikiTree, it was fairly basic, kind of a what I like to call a cousin bait tree. It had just enough so that if cousins were able to find it because that was their preferred site, then they'd be able to find me. But by being on the WikiTree challenge, they expanded it greatly. And then after I was on the WikiTree challenge, I ended up going on WikiTree a bit more. And recently, this week, I am the guest again for their new challenge, which I don't remember the exact aim of the old challenge, but I think it was mostly like ancestral. Like we're going to see how far we can trace it back, how many ancestors and how many brick walls we can break for you. This time they're focusing on what's known as the CC7. Basically, how many people can they find that are related to me within 7 degrees? And this isn't exactly like blood consanguinity sort of degrees, which is basically what it's based off of. But basically, it's this idea of like, okay, one step away from me is my parents, my siblings, and I don't have any kids. But if I had kids, one step down, so those are first degrees. Then, well, 2 steps away, my grandparents, because it's parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, parents, their siblings, aunts and uncles, nieces, nephews, your siblings. So that's kind of the whole idea of degrees. But then with the WikiTree challenge, it goes beyond that, where it's like multi-dimensional in the sense of like, I'm not married, but I have a sibling who's married. So their spouse is a second degree relative to me because technically it's a first degree to my sibling, then a second degree to them. And then their parents are third degree because second, third. So it's kind of that idea So that's why I'm saying not blood consanguinity. It's like a more multi-dimensional. So it's a really, really cool idea. And basically this entire week, there's a bunch of people on WikiTree who they are all competing to build my family tree as expansive as possible in every single way. So they're going up all these spousal branches, they're going up all of my own blood branches, but then they're also going to like descendancy research, so finding the siblings of my ancestors and building it down. So it's just a lot of really cool stuff. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. I don't know if you can still sign up. I don't know if any of the WikiTreeers are in the chat. Let me scroll down and see if. Oh yeah, I see Elaine here. Yes, exactly, for the brick wall. So I don't know if there's any extra info you want to give them, Elaine. But if you do, I'll put it up here. But I think if people still want to be involved, they can get involved, and it's a very collaborative thing. So people are commenting and talking about everything together, and yeah, it's just really cool. So, all right, just in case you were like going through this and being like, wait, I need more. I'll just put that back up too, but I'll jump back to the WikiTree thing too. Let's see, is that a better look? Which one's the best one? I need to edit this. Try to make it as big as possible for everybody, you know what I'm saying? That should be pretty good, I think. I'll just do that. Save that. Oh, wait. No, what did it do? Okay, there we go. All right, back to the hellos. Stig, hello, everybody from Oslo, Norway. Hello, Stig. Thank you for joining. Always wonderful to have our Scandinavian representation. And then Blackberry Rose, hello. One of our wonderful mods doing a link to what I have up on screen. So she was already a step ahead of me. Bryce, saying hello to Stig. We already got a hello from Bryce. Sharon Phillips, hello from New York. Hello, Sharon. Julia, I've uploaded my DNA to GEDmatch. What a game changer with matches. It says I'm related to Otzi, the Iceman. I must upload my mom's DNA to find out which side he's matching. Is it worth upgrading tier 1? Now, tier 1 is really worthwhile on GEDmatch. The only thing is that a lot of the tools in tier 1 do require a little bit of learning, but they are extremely, extremely useful. And one thing that may make it so that tier 1 isn't really useful for you is if you don't really have matches to work with, or especially if you don't have close relatives whose profiles are up there. So like one of the best things with GEDmatch is if you can get relatives to test, even if it's like nieces or nephews, or kids and your descendants won't be as helpful, because if you're looking at your family tree, you're going to have all the DNA of your ancestry that your descendants have, but any like siblings or their descendants or parents or their siblings and their any relatives from all the various sides. And there's a lot of different tools you can utilize to really get a lot out of that. But there's a lot you can get out of in the general GEDmatch part. To answer the kind of part about the Otzi thing, to see which side he's related to, it could technically be through both. He's pretty much related to everybody. It's just a matter of the way that they can link you is through specific haplogroups usually. I don't know if there's autosomal matching between ancient samples. I imagine there's some site that tries to do it, but I wouldn't take too much out of it. But definitely upload your mom's DNA to GEDmatch. That'll be super helpful. And you can do some fun tools with that too. So like one of the tools that's kind of fun to use is the evil twin tool, where basically if you have your parents' DNA tested, well, you can compare your DNA to your parents' DNA and create a profile of somebody where that's all the DNA from your parents that you did not inherit, aka your evil twin. So that's a kind of fun tool to use. I'm not going to pull up GEDmatch itself, but let me see if I can pull up something that's kind of like I guess the GEDmatch forums. There's also a family tree or a family history fanatics thing about this. But yeah, there's the my evil twin sort of thing. So you can kind of do different stuff. I know a lot of people, this is kind of the main thing they do with it is they aim to, see what the admixture stuff is. I know some people like to use it for matching and stuff. But it's just it's kind of a fun tool. Nick, guten Abend, Venut Chroniken. Hello, hui. Hoe gaat het? Hope you're doing well. Ik leer meer Nederlands. Ik wil, ik ben slecht in Nederlands. I don't know if I said that right. Something like that, yeah. Alexandra, hello from Koblenz, Germany. Happy to be here again. Hello, Alexandra. Wonderful to have you. All right. And I am not going to know how to pronounce your name. I'll just call you One because you have a 1 in the name. I got 4.4% Ashkenazi Jewish in my heritage, and I got 2.2% Yemenite Jewish in family tree DNA. And I got 5.7% Ashkenazi Jewish in GEDmatch. And I got 5.7% Libyan Jewish. And the new update, I got no Jewish DNA. What is going on was the Jewish group. I know I have some Jewish in my heritage, but I don't know from which group of Jewish. Okay, so basically the thing to understand here is that it may be very difficult to figure out which group of Jewish ancestors you come from just using the admixtures, because the various populations of Jews are so genetically related that it has been somewhat difficult to decipher them. Now, some groups have been much more distinct than others. And I should mention, I'm only talking autosomally with this. I'm not talking about Y-DNA sort of testing, which is much more specific, where they can actually do Y-DNA and figure out very specifically. But that only, that's only for people where they have a patrilineal Jewish ancestry. For something like this, assuming it's not patrilineal, maybe it is, and maybe a Y-DNA test would be extremely helpful. The main thing would be looking at your DNA matches and trying to identify DNA matches who are largely Jewish, or even better, if it's on one of the sites where you can do chromosome browsing, see if you can triangulate the Jewish segments you have to the segments that you're sharing with these people. Now, there's no specific exact way to do that exactly. With 23andMe, I think they still have it where you can look at your DNA breakdown, where basically it's going to show you, okay, well, of all the things that we're reading, here's where we're reading that this is coming from. I'm trying to remember which sites, if any of these ones have it. I feel like MyHeritage does, but I can't remember. But basically, if you can also triangulate segments, like let's say you do find a match that's 100% Jewish, and you share 50 or 60 centimorgans of DNA or something, you can DNA paint that. So basically, you put that in the chromosome browser, so okay, I matched them on this segment and this segment and this segment, and then you look and you find another Jewish match of yours where they're DNA matched to you, almost all Jewish ancestry, and then you see maybe that there's one of those segments that's triangulated between you and these two matches. Well, that gives you a really good hint that, okay, well, that segment definitely seems to be a segment that is coming from this possible Jewish ancestry. And so it's kind of sussing things out that way and looking at these matches and seeing where they're coming from. So if you see a bunch of matches and they are coming from the Yemeni Jewish communities, well, that's a pretty good hint that that may be the connection. Now, you can never be for sure until you connect with the family tree between yours and theirs, but it does give you hints, because like as an example, I descend from both Ashkenazi and Sephardi, but for the matches I have through my purely Sephardi lines, it's very distinct that I look at our matches and our shared matches, and while there are a lot of Ashkenazi clustered in there, you see the large majority that especially share a high amount between both of us having that same Sephardi ancestry. So, if somebody's Ashkenazi and is a relative of mine, they may look at things and see a lot of Sephardi stuff going on because there's me and then my Sephardi lines, and then they may be related to other Sephardi lines through other marriages in their families and things. So they may think, oh, well, I have Sephardi, but really it's not their ancestry. It's just that it's tangential, married into their family, if that makes sense. So these are just kind of ways to get an indication, but the truest way to figure it out would be through genetic genealogy, building your family tree. And based on the readings you have, I mean, 4.4 on MyHeritage, 2.2 on Family Tree, 5.7 on GEDmatch. And then for the new update, I don't know if you're talking about the new update on MyHeritage, which I think they're doing they did an update rollout for some people, and now it's still kind of in the works. But basically, it seems like it's hovering somewhere around 2 to 5.7% or so. So to me, I would read that as kind of maybe about 4% to get an idea of how far back that's coming from, assuming it's coming from one recent common ancestor. Well, bring this up like I usually like to do. If we're looking at about 4%, third great grandparents is probably going to be our most likely scenario. So the best way to think of it is it's not going to be exactly a third great grandparent. It's probably going to be, it could be as close as a second great grandparent, could be as distant as a fourth great grandparent, because we understand recombination can vary. And assuming that you're about my age and your ancestral background has, or your generational backgrounds are similar distances, basically each generation is a similar age in a sense. My third great grandparents were largely born early 1800s, fourth great grandparents born early 1800s, late 1700s, second great grandparents born mid 1800s. So assuming that you're around the same age and have a similar sort of thing going on in your family, that would mean that your purely Jewish ancestor, if this is coming from only one recent ancestor, not multiple more distant, is probably someone who was born sometime between the late 1700s and the mid 1800s. So if you can build out your family tree and identify all of your second great grandparents, identify all your third great grandparents, and even better, identify all of your fourth great grandparents, which that's a difficult feat. I'm not saying that everybody's going to be able to do that. I can't do that with my own family tree, but doing that is what's going to allow you to then possibly identify that ancestor. Because if it's about a second great grandparent to a fourth great grandparent, then if you identify all of them, you should be able to find the one. But again, assuming it's all coming from one recent ancestor and not just kind of a general, lots of Jewish ancestry, which is very possible because I have, let's see, did you say where you're coming, where your ancestry? So you didn't mention where you're coming from, but I'm guessing, Arabian Peninsula, Middle East, sort of, somewhere around there, maybe North Africa, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. You did mention, but all of those areas have known Jewish ancestry that is common to come up in these tests because, for one, the genetic ties between all of these various population groups, but as well because there are a lot of Jews who, for the past hundreds and thousands of years, have converted into these other population groups that have been in these same areas. So it is also possible that these readings you're getting are more representative of a lot of very distant ancestry. So instead of a second or fourth great grandparent, think of it as more of like 10 to 12 10th great grandparents or something like that. Or, just generalized. So, 10th great grandparents, you're looking at people born, in the 1600s sort of thing. So, that's very difficult. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful. Kingdom of Nox Artsia. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But Van Brabant here. Very cool. Van Brabant. I need to check out most of the Netherlands. I haven't been at much outside of Amsterdam. Granted, I've only been the one time, but I went down to Oudekerk, and that was really cool. But that was mostly for the cemetery, Bethlehem, and then beyond that, it is just being in Amsterdam city center most of the time. But I have so many cousins that are from all throughout the Netherlands that came to visit me in Amsterdam when I was there last. And I can't remember if cousins from there or not, but I know I have cousins in The Hague. I have cousins in Utrecht. Where was Thom at? I can't remember, but they're all over the place. Bearvar, Gruzy from Zurich. Wonderful to have you as always. Oh wow, we got a lot of questions and stuff going on. I'm being really slow about this. Wow, I see where I posted that link. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick announcement because I didn't say this yet today, and I usually do. The way that I'm gonna run things is I go through chat. I'm gonna answer questions, and if you have a question, put it in chat. I cannot guarantee I will answer all the questions, but if you do a super chat, I do guarantee I will answer those questions. A large part of it just being the fact that it makes it really easy for me to find those questions. But it is also extremely appreciated that, people doing the super chats, or if you do super stickers, it helps support the channel, which is wonderful because this is, it's not an easy thing. Being YouTuber isn't as easy as a lot of people make it seem, I think, sometimes. But if you do a super chat, I guarantee I will answer those. But if I don't answer your question in the regular chat, you can't do a super chat. Just keep asking it, and if I see it, I'll try to answer it. But I just want to say that because I'm probably going to do a quick go through some more hellos, and then I may jump past a few things just to catch up a little bit. So, all right. So I said that because I saw this question, and I don't know how far I'll get into it, but Burke Sulek, to what extent does DNA triangulation confirm IBD? So IBD meaning identical by descent, meaning that you're sharing DNA with someone, your DNA is identical because you descend from similar ancestors or the same ancestor. As a Turk, I found a triangulated segment, 10 centimorgans, shared between myself, my second cousin, and some Greek individuals. Is it a good indicator? So I guess basically, is it a good indicator that your second cousin, and these Greek individuals all have shared ancestry, and that 10 centimorgan segment is coming from that shared ancestry? And I think the way that I would probably put this is it seems to indicate that with triangulated segments, I guess there's two ways to kind of think about it. There's the more practical way, and then there's kind of the general way of you do share you do all three share ancestry. It's just a matter of is it identifiable? But basically the way that I would say it is, in terms of the practicality of trying to identify a shared ancestor between you, your second cousin, and these Greek individuals, I think it is a high confident indication that there is some sort of shared ancestry between you, but understanding the fact that this matching between some Greek individuals. Now, notice it's not a Greek individuals, it's multiple. So it's not just like a triangulated segment between you, your cousin, your second cousin, and another person. It's you, your second cousin, and multiple other people, which brings that confidence extremely high. That's really what you're looking for. But I think there's always still that kind of possibility, just to keep in the back of your mind of you just never know what little weird thing might be going on. So I think the most likely thing is that it is identical by descent. There is a possibility it could be identical by chance, IBC. But yeah, it's funny because in the Genetic Genealogy and Tips Facebook group, which is a great Facebook group, I highly recommend people check that out because it's a group run by Blaine Bettinger, where honestly, I get some of the most in-depth news in the genetic genealogy world through that group. But there's also a lot of really good discussions. And there was a discussion about this exact thing that Blaine went into. And basically, what he said is that, yes, it always indicates that there is a shared ancestry between the individuals. I'm not going to say any further of what he was saying exactly because I didn't read in depth enough to kind of get the full gist of his point, because I kind of was reading it fast because I was on my way to something. But with you, a second cousin, and many Greek individuals, I think it's a great indication as to indicating, I don't know. I think at this point, basically the theory is that, okay, you have this great grandparents that you share with your second cousin, which must be where the Greek connection is through, or these Greek cousins are connected through. So if you research that ancestry while also researching these Greek individuals' family trees, you may be able to find where that connection is. Now, with a 10 centimorgan segment, hopefully you share a bit more DNA with them, or your second cousin does, because otherwise it could also just be kind of more of an endogamous indication, I guess. There's that possibility, but yeah, overall, I mean, it seems like it's a very good indication. Very, very good indication. Okay. Continuing on, Katie Gray, good afternoon from Northeast Ohio. Good afternoon, Katie. Thank you for joining. We have Eric Sheridan from Kansas City, Missouri. Hello, Eric. We have our Portuguese in the chat, Gazillion PT. Wow, the chat in on full speed. Yeah, it's really going. Gonna listen while reading your ancestry tree for WikiTree stuff. Very cool. Yeah, it's so cool knowing I have like people all over the world right now working on my family tree, trying to extend it and trying to discover things that I haven't discovered, which is, I always love it when people discover stuff for me. Sylvia, a fellow Ohioan. Hello, Sylvia. I don't know who you're talking about. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. You were talking to Katie. I was like, wait, someone said Ohio. Okay. Because I'm not from Ohio. Obviously. Yeah. PZ, hello from East LA. Hello, PZ. Hello. Rhonda Lewis, hello from New Mexico. Hello, Rhonda. Thank you for joining. We have Illyrian. Sound good. Thank you. Good to hear that it sounds good. And also some representation from our Twitch chat. And then I guess that this is the chat that was starting right when I started, basically, I guess. So just catching up. All right. So, all right, let's see. Where are we? Okay. So I'm going to do this question and then we'll kind of jump forward a bit. Where was that? Okay. Illyrian, what do you think about the progress in genetic research with the help of artificial intelligence? Well, honestly, I mean, we've kind of already been dealing with that for a year. Like a lot of the abilities we have in genetic genealogy is technically AI. I forgot exactly how he puts it, but Steve Little in one of his talks kind of talked about how, everything that we deal with is AI. It's just that once it becomes kind of part of our I don't want to say second nature, but kind of like part of our workflow and stuff. And like, it's, that's okay. Well, not really AI anymore in a sense. So like, I think one of the examples he used was, technically a calculator is AI. So, just the fact that we can have match lists is technically AI. Now in terms of like, I think what most people think of nowadays when they think of AI, they think of large language models, LLMs like ChatGPT, which there is a very big use for them. And I have a talk called The Future of Genealogy, which is one where I've been giving a lot lately. And I talk a lot about various forms of AI, but AI ChatGPT always seems to be kind of a one that a lot of people really, really, really like. But in terms of like genetic research applications for large language models, there's not a whole lot except for kind of workflow stuff. So I don't remember what sites allow it now, but whichever sites allow you to download a CCV of your match list, maybe you can upload that and do some sort of an AI trick with it. Technically at this point, the AI stuff available for genetic genealogy, the best stuff that I think you could do with large language models like ChatGPT is already being done. So like auto clustering, like what I just mentioned with the CCV and stuff, like you could kind of do that, but like the auto cluster tools kind of already do that in a much better advanced way. So I'll keep an eye out, see if maybe there's kind of a follow-up question that you have or something that you're kind of hitting more at with it than large language models, because, like with a lot, like the big AI stuff beyond large language models that I see really taking a big hit in the genealogy community are the OCR, optical character recognition, which is really interesting of it itself, because OCR has been around since the early 1900s, or when was the optophone invented? I always forget. The optophone, the first OCR device. So 1913, OCR has been around basically since 1913. So basically generates varying chords of tones to identify letters. Well, what is OCR? It's identifying text to then create an output. So the output for the first OCR machine was audio, a tone. So with OCR, the big thing going on now is Transcribus, which is the big space. It's taking the big space that people really want, which is OCR with handwritten text. So with Transcribus, some people say, you get really advanced stuff. Now, I think I talked about this in a video I did. I can't remember for sure. I know I've posted about it a few different times, but like, this is the other big thing in AI, but this obviously won't have any impact on the genetic genealogy side of things. And then the third version of AI that's big in genealogy. So there's large language models, then there's the OCR, and then the third thing that's the big thing is facial recognition. But that's just starting to take off. That's something that's only, that's only been very limited people working in, because it's the people that already kind of understand that software going, we could apply this. So, I talked about that in a video a while back now, actually. Basically, I saw a talk by this guy, Scott Genzer, and he talked about this very thing, and my mind was absolutely blown. And it was like, oh my gosh, let's see what we can do with this. So I got in touch with Scott, and I've been working with him on different stuff, different projects. But in this video on my main, don't know if you even heard that, but on this channel, the main channel, I did a video. Oh God, I hated that haircut. Some dude was like, trust me, this is what you want. I tried it and I was like, God, no. But anyway, yeah, so like facial recognition, Scott had it, it's something that's been around for a while, but Scott had done it where he then identified these families from Yelitz, Poland, using just facial recognition. And basically he did this by getting all of these records where it said they were from this town, and then creating a profile for it. So right now it's showing that, like, him going through all these records. And then once he was able to do that and assign all these different people, names to faces and all of that, then he started to put in all of these photos of people that were unidentified. And through that, he identified these people in the photos. So another big use of AI, but once again, not something that's going to be useful in the genetic side of genealogy. So yeah, I mean, it's AI is going to be a big thing, but I think right now people are so obsessed with like ChatGPT and large language models and stuff like that. I don't think that's going to be as big of an impact on the genealogy community as this other stuff. All right. Adam, good evening from Swindon, England. Hello, Adam. Thank you for joining. Maven, I hope everything they add to your wiki tree isn't just sourced with links to your gene tree. Yeah, no, I don't think so. One of the things about wiki treers that I've found is that they certainly love their sources. And I imagine that, especially this being a challenge, that a lot of them are going to try to do the best job possible. I'm sure there may be some who, their work isn't quite as up to par as some of the others, but, everybody's got to start somewhere. Catherine, ooh, can I add to your tree? I have loads of stuff. I think you can. Yeah, Elaine said you can. So yeah, you can learn about WikiTree. It's yeah. I think when they did mine in 2021, that was the first time they ever had like a large representation of the Dutch Jewish trees in WikiTree. They had a lot of Dutch trees, but not the Dutch Jewish. So now they have a lot of the Dutch Jewish stuff in there, but I imagine, Catherine, there's a ton of stuff you could add for our family. Does it overlap with the Sourceathon coming up? Maven, no, it's separate, though Jarrett might have added a few unsourced family members. If they are not all done by Sourceathon, then those would count for Sourceathon. Yeah. Yeah, I did what I did before my WikiTree challenge was I went through and I connected some like living branches to deceased area or deceased relatives or connections so that they had more to work with, sort of thing. And with a lot of that, I kind of added it as just like, from my memory sort of thing, just very simple, leaving it for them to really get into. So I see John Tyner. Good evening, Jarrett and Elaine. Hello, John. Thank you for joining. We also have Carol Suniga from SoCal. Hello, Carol. And Veer 1981. I guess more Scandinavian hellos then. Hello. Yeah, I feel like I get a decent Scandinavian representation in my chats. I mean, I usually average, I want to say 40 to 50 people a stream, at least concurrently watching live. I always feel like at least 4 or 5 people I have from various areas of Scandinavia. I don't know. All right, let's jump forward and kind of let's see if we can catch up a little bit. Okay, we're all the way up there. Okay, let's see if we can find. Let's go with this. Jose Lopez 94. What are the chances I have a great grandparent on my mother's side who's 100% Irish and came from Limerick, Ireland, based on the screenshot my sister sent me? I don't know your screen. I can't reference the screenshot your sister sent you, so I wouldn't know. I don't know if am I missing something else? Is there something that you posted? I don't know. I guess I'll jump to another question. Unless were you asking somebody else? Because I see Eric answering you. I don't know. Although I did notice that I missed a hello evening from Charlie. Evening, Charlie. Always wonderful to have you. Also saw Dan Edwards in the crowd. Hola. Hola, Dan. And then Mom Plus 5. I was gonna say Mom Pulsive, like impulsive. All right. Hello. All right, let's see. Some more hellos. Sean, hello. Okay, Jose Lopez 94. I watched one of your reaction videos on YouTube and you talked about your Ancestry DNA results. Yeah, well, so they technically wouldn't have been my Ancestry DNA results. They would have been my mom's and my dad's. I've never actually tested on Ancestry. There's really no point because I have my mom and my dad tested in Ancestry. So all the DNA that I have is from them. So the only thing that I'd really get out of that is getting an idea of, well, what does it look like for the next generation and how can we interpret that sort of thing? And that would, I don't really see that that much usefulness out of that. But yeah, I probably talked about it, and I'm planning to do in the very near future an updated video on what I think the best DNA test is. So my old video now is from at least 2 years old, if not older than that. So I think it is. So I need to do an update one, especially because now Ancestry has Pro Tools. There's been so many changes with so many stuff, and yeah, just a lot to update on. But when I do that, I think I'm going to show a lot of the DNA results because I've basically, I tested with 23andMe, I tested with Family Tree DNA, I've tested with MyHeritage, did not test with Ancestry, did not test with Living DNA, but I did upload to Living DNA. So yeah, so I'll talk about those whenever I do that video. Adam, Creeper from Borland Genetics is a useful feature. It is a digital assistant helping with workflows such as visual phasing. Interesting. I knew that Kevin Borland from Borland Genetics does a lot of the AI stuff, and I've seen him post about some of the things he's done, but I haven't really used a lot of those tools yet. But visual phasing, actually, that's a great mention because that was one thing that I had said to I think I'd said that to EJ from Genetic Affairs, but I'd also mentioned it to some of the people from Verigen / Kyogen, the company that owns GEDmatch. And then I've mentioned it to a few others, but yeah, like visual phasing, that is something that could be an easy workflow to do. And honestly, I think it's something that could be, if not fully automated, partially automated, where like maybe chromosome by chromosome, it kind of automatically figures out the breakpoints and then kind of assigns things. And then you just have to figure out the colors, and then you assign the colors. And once you have like enough colors assigned where it can automatically figure out the other stuff. Because it is a lot of, I mean, it is a lot of kind of very basic sort of, you know, if it's this, then you do this. If it's that, then you do that. You know, it's, you know, you find the break point, you know, do the GEDmatch 101. Okay, that's quick, easy. Then snapshot each chromosome. Okay, that's quick, easy. That's something workflow could easily do. Find the breakpoints. That's quick, easy. Assign which breakpoint is coming from which person. Okay, now we can assign that down here, and then it breaks that up. And basically, the color coding is really the biggest part that you would have to do yourself. So I need to check that, you know. Let me look into that, because I have not messed with any of his tools, and I really should. So I'll look into that. So I've met Kevin Borland like once or twice, really briefly. And actually, the first time, I don't even think I realized it was him. I was sitting in the lobby of a hotel with Drew Smith from the Genealogy Guys podcast and Randy Whited. And Kevin came up and was talking to them, and then I realized like halfway through, I was like, "Oh, that's Kevin Borland." And then, yeah. So one of the fun things about going to conferences. Eric Sheridan, you talked about OCR in a stream a couple of months ago. Yeah, I feel like I talk about a lot of this stuff over and over. You know, to me, it feels like I'm constantly repeating myself. So I never know when I'm truly repeating myself in these streams, but I end up doing it all the time, because it's like, you know, every time I talk to somebody about this stuff, it's kind of the same spiel sort of thing, which is useful because it makes it easier when I find newer people that I want to explain something to explain it without, you know, sounding too crazy or unintelligible. Okay, thank you. To follow up, my heritage found 40% Greek Italian. My family tree found 40% Italy, Balkans, and Genotech detected 10% South Italy and Spain Basque region. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I remember the Greek question you had before. So interesting. Eric, ChatGPT could help write a biography of your ancestors using the sources available. Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT definitely has uses in in genealogy. I just, you know, I don't think it's going to be that big. It's going to be workflow stuff. That's the biggest thing. So like the autobiography stuff and all of that, I think that will be useful for a lot of people. I know that one of the Chat GPT tools I've used is Summarizer, which I think, if I remember correctly, that's the one where you upload a document and then it will summarize it for you in a narrative form. So, you know, you upload a death record and it'll say, you know, so-and-so died on this date, but, you know, and writes it out kind of like that. So, Brian Van Overberg. Afternoon, Jared. Hello, Brian. Thank you for joining. And we have Anna Tommaso just joining in. Hello, Anna. Hello. Okay, let's see. Follow up. I found in my heritage, I have some Libyan and Yemenite Jewish, but no Ashkenazi Jewish relative. And in GEDmatch, I found a lot of Ashkenazi Jewish. I'm from Egypt, and yes, my third grandmother was Jewish. And because the problem between the Arab and Jewish, when I got my second great grandmother birth certificate, I found there's no mother's name. Very interesting. So basically, kind of was spot on that it was a third great grandparent who was Jewish. And so, yeah, and then the records show that. So now, what do you know what her Jewish ancestry was? Because you know, if you do have like my heritage, I found some Libyan and Yemenite Jewish, but no Ashkenazi Jewish relatives. That surprises me a bit, in the sense that there are tons of Ashkenazi Jews in my heritage, And if it was from an Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry, you'd probably see a ton of them. So if you're seeing mostly Libyan and Yemenite Jewish, I'm thinking, especially knowing you're from an Egyptian ancestry, that's probably the most likely connection, is that you are not coming from an Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry, but a Libyan and Yemenite Jewish ancestry. So all very much hints. But being that, if you know it's your third great grandmother, you know which one it is, and you're obviously pulling records and things like that. Hopefully you can figure it out that way. But yeah, I mean, based on the DNA that you had before, which I wonder if I'll be able to find that. Let's see if I can find that. Like way up there. Oh yeah, there we go. So, you were getting different stuff on the different sites. You did get Yemenite Jewish on Family Tree DNA, GEDmatch, the Ashkenazi Jewish, and then Libyan, 5.7% Libyan Jewish. Oh, were both of those from GEDmatch? I can't remember. Okay. But either way, I mean, it's all kind of, the thing with the admixtures is it's just a general, they try to specifically give a specific Jewish group, but they're not always right in that. And especially knowing the difficulties of trying to do that, the fact that these companies even attempt it, there's a big chance that they're going to have not the greatest precision and recall numbers. So yeah, very interesting that it's basically, from what you're saying, it is tying very well into what as it being a third great grandmother. And just to bring that banner back up, we're looking at about 4% Jewish reading was the average of what we were getting, and that's right in line with about a third great grandparent. So, and then goes to show you too, if you're getting a higher amount than this 3 point whatever percent, that means that this grandparent, this third great grandparent, this third great grandmother, you're actually getting a bit more of her DNA than you are from your other third great grandparents. So very cool. Jose, my dad told me one day that I have French ancestry on his side, and I never knew that despite it not being detected when my sister got the Ancestry DNA test results through my Heritage on Earth Day. So, I mean, the thing about French ancestry, though, is that it's one of those ones where you're not always going to get French readings, and you have to keep a much more open mind about what you're getting and what it could mean, especially if you know where in France you're coming from. If you're coming from a much northern area of France, and let's break it down into 4 quadrants, right? So first, let's go with northwestern areas of France. Well, probably going to be a lot of ties to British Isles. All right, then we go northeastern side of France. Well, northeastern side of France. Then we're going to be dealing with a lot of Belgian and Dutch connections and German connections. And especially considering we're also in the Alsace-Lorraine area, also considering the southeastern section of France. And then once again, dealing with that same thing, except now we're also getting all those ties into, Italy and Southern Europe. And why can't I think of that country name? Why is that? I know it starts with an L. Why am I blanking on that country? Oh, Switzerland. Why was I thinking an L? So like the Alps. Although I guess that's more southwestern, but still, so it's just when you look at no, never mind. Sorry, yeah, southeastern. Yeah. So, but when you look at France, depending on where you're at, you're going to have so many different things going on, and so, if you're in southwestern France, Basque region, then yeah, you could get Basque readings, you could get Iberian readings. So that's the thing about these admixtures, and a big thing about what you need to consider when going through all of these. So yeah, it makes sense. Mom plus 5. What Jews ran during World War II from Constantinople? I mean, Constantinople, that was where, there was a large Sephardic Jewish community that had been around for, hundreds of years, dating back to the 1300s, if not earlier. So, with the Ottoman Empire, a lot of them came over during the Reconquista. So even before the Alhambra Decree in 1492, there was a lot of stuff going on in the Iberian Peninsula. And with the Reconquista, there was a lot of anti-Semitism constantly happening, 1391 being a huge year for that. And so we saw a ton of migration into the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. So not quite sure what your exact, like what Jews ran during World War II from Constantinople. Sephardic Jews, I guess. All right. Anna, speaking of snippets, do you know how much DNA would change if you get an organ transplant? I don't know. The only sort of transplant that I know of that is an issue with DNA, and I think it's not the only one, but it's the only one that I know for sure, is a bone marrow transplant. You do a bone marrow transplant, and you're basically a chimera at that point. And I think that a lot of the DNA companies have it in their terms of service that if you have had a bone marrow transplant, you are not allowed to use their services because the results you get may not be from you. It may be from your donor. Now, granted, obviously, depending on who your bone marrow transplant donor was, if you can get their permission, or maybe it's a sibling or something, but you just have to consider that sort of a thing. But as for other sort of like a heart transplant, or a kidney transplant, or whatever, I don't think that's going to affect it, where especially like if you do a DNA test or anything like that, it's just going to be the bone marrow that I know of. But I feel like I'd heard of another sort of thing that it wasn't similar, but something I forgot exactly what. But okay, let's see. I see we have a super chat. Spartan Chuckles, thank you very much for the Canadian 5. Got about 40% Dutch, 40% English, plus other stuff. Ended up doing DNA tests to find biological family as I'm adopted. Got adopted plus bio family trees. Very cool. Very cool. So not sure if there's a question you have with that. I'll keep an eye out for something more with that. I don't know where you are with the quest to identify your biological family, whether you found them or not, but best of luck to you. Actually, right before the stream, I was watching a bunch of clips from the Relative Race channel, which for anyone who's not familiar with Relative Race, which I imagine a lot of my audience is, it is a show where people that have unknown biological ancestry for various reasons basically race around the country against each other in teams of 2. Why is that not working? Why not? Okay, there we go. All right. They in teams of 2, and they basically find their family. And so I did reactions to this on the main channel a while back. I wonder if I actually, let's close this stuff. See if we can watch one of these clips on here. Okay, yeah. So hopefully you all will get to see this, but what's one that's a real so I guess I know which one I want to do. I just have to find it, and I think they have it as a clip here. But basically, you get teams of 2, and one or both of them will have a story of not knowing their family for whatever reason. And then as they did a DNA test beforehand and they figured it all out for them. And then as they go through to find their family, they like go do all these challenges and stuff. And in the end, someone gets to win $10,000, but they all win because they all get to meet their biological family. So the one that I was looking for I'm not seeing it. But we'll do this one. Yeah, we don't need to hear what you got.
24. And why?
Hey,
I know
how are
you.
you?
You're my third grade teacher.
That's right. Hey, Jamie, you remember me? Hey, baby boy, for you. This is my baby.
You had no clue. How are we related?
Well, Jamie, I'm your father's first cousin.
This one was crazy.
It's good to see you.
I think if I remember correctly, this was his first relative that he met. And, basically they're told to go to the town that they're from, which is very rare. And theirs was amazing because they basically already knew their entire family. They just didn't realize that they were family.
I'm Gwen Turner, and I'm Jamie and Jansen Coward's third grade teacher. I was very anxious to let them know that we were family. Good to see you. Jansen, that's third grade baby.
That's crazy. My third grade teacher.
You're my cousin too.
I'm happy. I am very excited because now I have someone that I can relate to on my dad's side of the family. And
New season September 22nd.
It meant the world to me.
Thank you, Anna.
How long have you known?
I really didn't until tests were run, and then it was confirmed. It felt miraculous. It's just amazing to be able to realize that your family finally is coming together.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always been.
We grew up together. Yeah.
Keep
So
those
we
tissues
take
nearby
a little
with relative
stroll
race
down
for
memory
sure.
lane. But then we get to an area where they have all the graduating classes from Kirby.
And look who we have here.
There's Mama.
There's your mama.
Look at her, Jansen.
Look how beautiful. She had beautiful dark eyes just like you.
Looking at that picture hanging in this school is, to me, is amazing. Her graduation picture is the only picture that I have. And I mean, it means the world to me.
Well, that's a good picture. That's a great one to have.
It is.
His mother had him and then died in a car crash not too long after he was born, but had never told anyone who the father was, but they weren't 100% sure who the father was. But apparently, a lot of the father's family, including the father, suspected that he was the son, but because of, just, the way things are, they couldn't say anything about it. So I know a bunch of people were commenting about the, that same story. But I saw also Spartan Chuckles, who had mentioned this before with the $5, which thank you again for that. Did get family ID'd, fun doing this stuff. Channel definitely helped out with some tips and info, which I'm very happy that helped you in identifying your biological family. That's awesome. Then I also saw this. found out my legal adopted cousin one times removed was also a biological cousin one times removed, which that's really, really cool. So that makes me wonder, and you may know whether it's just coincidence or not, but if it is a coincidence sort of thing, or was it, were you adopted by family that somehow there was a connection, even if it wasn't like they knew each other, it was like, I have friends who have friends, or, something like that. Because I've heard a lot of adoption stories like that, where, there's a couple that wants to adopt, and then they have friends that have friends who find out about whatever. And so, yeah. Relative race only helps those within the USA. I tried to apply my brother who's born in Paraguay, and they said no go. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because unless they're in the US, they're probably, for one, not going to really have the budget to be able to be flying people around. But also, that's kind of a big issue when part of the idea is everyone's competing within the same areas. My best guess is at most, they might allow people that are Canadian or Mexican, but even then, I think it would be very doubtful. It is run by the LDS Church through BYU TV, and I don't know what kind of a budget they have for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they expanded relative race into other networks outside of the US, because for one, LDS is everywhere, really. I mean, that's kind of like the whole thing about LDS. They have missions all over the place. But on top of that, because of this show being such a heartwarming sort of show that's so something a lot of people really like, I think that you get a ton of people that, I would think that the church would probably see this as a way for them to possibly, get their claws into some people to join. And then, that was crazy. Later on, his grandmother knew the whole time and never said anything. Yeah. That's a sweet story. Done with work and can more properly pay attention now. Woo. Awesome, Dre. Actually, how long have I've been going for just about an hour. Okay. Spartan didn't know about the connection until after the DNA test. Okay. Yeah, obviously, the first cousin once removed thing, I'm guessing that's probably more of a coincidence for you, but still kind of very, very cool. And then being able to figure it all out. I wonder if we should, I don't want to watch another one of these, see if there's any good ones. Because the one that I wanted to see, I wonder if it was one that I did a reaction to. Might have been. So, and if anyone wants to watch my reactions, I have 2 full seasons. I'll put that in there. So I reacted to season 7 and season 8. I didn't go back to reacting to them again just because the one I'm thinking of isn't here. I didn't go back to reacting to them just because of the fact that it takes so much time. Each episode is an hour long. And, I've got to stop and talk and, all that. I mean, I technically don't, but, I also don't want to do lazy reactions where I just sit there and you watch me watching it. I want to actually add something to it and make it, fair use, true fair use. So, it's like, it takes at least an hour and a half to film each one. And then it's a ton of work. And the thing that I found, unfortunately, with it was the amount of work that it was versus the people that were the amount of people watching it. It was actually bringing my views on the overall channel down because so few people were watching them. So I just kind of had to stop doing them. And I have a ton of people who request that I do it all the time. But I guess it might happen again at some point. But for now, I think it's gonna largely be this. I don't know. Maybe I'll do some live stream reactions or something. That might be fun. So I'm just scrolling through. I'm trying to find the one clip I was looking for. So we'll see if I can. I know you all can't even see basically, I think what I guess I might as well do this. Let's go over here. I think they posted it on their Twitter at some point. The clip I'm looking for, which is probably one of their most famous clips. So when the race starts out, they like all start in the same spot and they do a challenge against each other. And then once they get their keys, they have to like drive off to, you know, their first town. They don't have a cell phone or they don't have a smartphone to help tell them where to go. They're just told a town and they have to get there using old-fashioned maps. And then once they get to the town, they are then texted a address they have to go to, which once at that address, then they have a challenge that they have to get through. And once they finish the challenge, they're given another address. And that second address will be the address of where they're going to go to meet relatives. And once they meet the relatives, that's when like the clock stops, or like once they get to the house. It used to be that like once they introduce themselves, but I think they realized that was an issue because instead of like being able to say hello like really well, it was like these rushed like, oh hi, you're what? Okay. And it kind of ruined the like the whole thing of it. So now they stop the clocks as soon as they pull up. Just not finding it. Although they post a lot more than I realized. I wonder if I I need to do this off screen because scrolling through Twitter live streamed is probably a really, really risky thing. All right. Oh, it was Marcus. Yeah. Okay, here we go. I finally found it. Okay, so with the show, they have to they have to watch or not watch after they get their challenge or whatever, they have to drive off. Well, one of them has to drive, and in this one there was a team where no one could drive, and so they found a pretty cool solution.
All right, go ahead, meet your team.
Hey guys, happy to be your driver.
My cousin.
Especially you, Marcus.
Wait, is the audio there? Am I sharing this right? I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. All right, here we go.
Hey guys, happy to be your driver.
My cousin.
Especially you, Marcus.
Nice to meet you.
I'm your dad.
Whoa.
Oh, that's so cool! Yes!
Dude,
Oh my goodness, yes! I'm so happy for you guys.
I don't even know what to say right now.
One of the things with this show is that when they go on the journey, they don't know who they're going to meet. So a lot of them find out on the journey that, their biological parents have passed, or sometimes, they're not willing to meet. I think there's been a few where, they're willing to meet, just not on camera sort of thing. But like when they're all starting at this point, I mean, this is literally first hour, I imagine. And it's, they're all like hopeful for what they're going to find. And then to see somebody get to meet their dad right then, it's just like, that's such a good moment.
this is a loop, brother.
Yay!
This is a loop,
Oh, that's so yay!
I've been waiting. I've known 3 months. I've been waiting. Couldn't wait.
All right, go ahead, meet your team.
Hey guys, happy to be your driver.
Yeah, Relative Race is such a good show. Such a good show. Oh, yeah, this was a good one too. We'll watch it. We'll watch this one. Why not? Why not? Oh, they don't show the
Baby sister.
I don't know her, but I know her.
They didn't show the actual meeting. They did, or well, the hello part. Yeah. Definitely, by far, one of the best shows out there. Why am I crying in the metaphorical club right now? As an adoptee, I love seeing videos like these where they get to me. Yeah. Relative race. I mean, for anyone that's dealing with that too, I feel like it's probably such an inspirational thing to watch. Although for some, I imagine it's also a very difficult thing to watch too, kind of, with knowing what you want and all that. When my sister found out that we had family in Guam, I was impressed, and that piqued my interest in genealogy. Oh, very cool. You should head out to Guam, meet the family. Carol, I hope 23andMe doesn't close down. I just tested this year. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see what happens with 23andMe. Right now, it's actually, I thought about whether or not I should make a video about what's going on or talk about it or what. And I kind of didn't want to because there's just so much vitriol out there. And, especially, I think it's a lot of it's on Twitter/X or whatever. But, the amount of fear mongering people have with DNA testing is just, it's just mind blowing sometimes. And especially some of these people, the conspiracy theorists, oh my gosh, it is just ridiculous. But in terms of everything going on, it's 23andMe, I've always felt, has had a bad business model, especially compared to all the other companies, because their main two sources of revenue are people doing the DNA tests and then them selling the DNA test data to other third parties and healthcare companies and stuff. And so it's like, I would, to me, I would imagine that's the exact type of thing that would put a lot of people off from wanting to test with them. But at the same time, I would imagine that, like they've seen over the years, there's been a lot of controversy around that. And, it's just not, I don't really see it as a very sustainable model. But then, they've also been pushing the genealogy community away for years. And, I remember when they came out with the 23andMe Plus and they, limited stuff to 1,500 relatives. And, they were doing all this stuff that basically just, didn't help the genealogy community. It just took things away from us. And for years, I want to say, it felt like there was like a 2 or 3 year period where 23andMe was like the place that people suggested. And then that slowly switched over to Ancestry, and then 23andMe has just been on a big downward spiral. I don't know whether it'll happen or not, but my hope is that if they end up getting sold, at least that their database, their matching database, gets absorbed by one of the other matching databases. Now, I don't know what the legality would be with something like that. I imagine it's probably within the terms of service that it wouldn't be an issue. But I know I was kind of talking about this in one of the Discord groups, and there were a lot of people that were kind of saying, they're not going to sell it. They're not going to sell 23andMe to, one of the other companies. They'll sell it to a healthcare company or something. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they would. But at the same time, they also have this matching database of autosomal SNP DNA that they could sell it. They have a healthcare company is not going to have any use to the matching part of the database sort of thing. And, I don't know so that'd be something I'd be, I'd be hopeful could happen, but you just, who knows, but that'd be so awesome. Like, especially like, could you imagine if all of a sudden MyHeritage absorbed all of the 23andMe kits, and then you could actually do a comparison between MyHeritage and all these other kits? I mean, that'd be so cool. Especially, with MyHeritage, you have the chromosome browsing, you have the auto clustering, you have advanced shared matches without having to pay well, I guess you do have to have a membership still, but yeah, not an extra thing on top of the membership. But one thing for sure, as Bearvar is saying, download your 23andMe raw DNA, upload to other DNA sites like MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. But the other big thing is, well, it's up in the air. What's going to happen with 23andMe? Snapshot as much as you can, keep as much data as you can, because once it's gone, then it's gone. It's very similar. We've already had this happen in the genealogy community, where we have this massively used database by people, and then it was taken over or became defunct. So one of those was Y Search. Oh yeah, I'm not sharing in the way that I can show that. So there used to be Y Search, which was kind of like a GEDmatch sort of thing. And then in 2019, I think it was, is when Y Search basically went off the air. Maybe it was a little bit before that. I feel like it was before the whole takeoff of IGG, but maybe I'm wrong. But either way, yeah, I mean, with Y Search, that's I guess here's one from the WikiTree forum. But it was a Y-DNA matching database. So, now it's gone. Now the next best thing is Mito Y-DNA, which is something run by Mags Galden, who's a big part of WikiTree. So that kind of fits that I'm looking at a WikiTree thing to talk about this. But, it could happen to 23andMe. And so if you can snapshot as much as you can, that's the best thing to do now as a genealogist. She works for Relative Race now and divorced. Watch, where are they now? Oh yeah, you're talking about what's her name? I want to say her name's Rebecca. Yeah, her. Not her, but her. Yeah. I've seen a few of those where they now ones. If you go to BYU TV, that's where you can watch all this stuff, and they, have the follow-up episodes to Relative Race. They have a lot of tangential stuff to Relative Race now too, I want to say. So yeah, Relative Race after the finish. That's an extras, I guess. Yeah. John Tyner, I still have my upgraded due and send back. I hope they run it through the database at 23andMe. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because a lot of people are trying to do the update to the newest V chip. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. We're gonna have to see what happens with it. I haven't seen any updates today. I haven't checked, so I don't know what the big thing is, if anything's happened today. But obviously, I saw everything that happened yesterday. Yeah. So let's see. Where are we? Okay. Oh, I'm not that farther back in the chat. Drea, have they put up the ability to download your raw data again? I haven't really been on since things started falling apart. I can't remember. I remember they took that down, but I want to say I thought they'd put that back up, but maybe I'm wrong. I know that the one thing I know they didn't put back up was the chromosome browsing part, but I could be wrong. Bearvar. Yes, they've reactivated being able to download your raw DNA. Okay, good. Yeah, if MyHeritage gets the database at 23andMe, that'd be a real game changer. Definitely. In my opinion, I don't know if this is MyHeritage's aim, but I would assume that MyHeritage was aiming to try to overtake Ancestry as the largest database, or at the very least close the gap greatly. And they've been doing a decent job at it. A big part of it being that they allow uploads. There was at some point they acquired a bunch of DNA matches from somewhere. I don't remember where it was from, but I remember seeing like a couple of really good matches to my dad's side that it was like, oh my gosh, who is this person? And how are they related? What is this? And it was like a really odd thing. And then I somehow found out that it was part of some acquisition they had at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking through my MyHeritage matches right now, trying to see if I can identify any of them. Maybe it'd be one of the ones through here. See if I can find. Okay, yeah, here's one. Yeah, so like they would say, yeah, there's no way I can show this on screen. But it does say this kit is not associated with my heritage. Is there any way I'd be able to show that? No. So I don't remember how they acquired it. If anyone remembers, I'm going to keep my eye out in chat. But yeah, at one point they acquired it. Acquired something, some DNA tests. Katie Gray, I'm so happy I did an Ancestry DNA test and 23andMe. I found a cousin that allegedly was the daughter of my grandfather, but their centimorgans does not match up, but she is still related. I'm hoping that she does an Ancestry test so I can be sure. Yeah. One of the difficulties with DNA testing is there are some times where you have outliers in your ancestry or your family tree. Maybe there is more going on sometimes than you think, but I've definitely seen enough cases of multiple cousins doing a DNA test and almost all of them matching up the way that you would think, except, one cousin to one cousin, for whatever reason, they just match way less than the others, or, it's just the randomness of recombination sort of thing. And then it can go the other way too, where you end up sharing way more. So granted, that can sometimes mean that there is something else going on that you just haven't identified. But an example that I use all the time is that for my mom, she has a second cousin who matches its 700 centimorgans, which is well outside the typical amount of a second cousin. So a second cousin, a high amount, and what they have in these readings, 650, they don't even have anybody that's that or higher. Granted, I know Blaine is cutting out the way that he does this. He's cutting out outliers. I don't remember exactly how far out he's cutting it, but like if I were to submit that connection between my mom and this second cousin, more than likely that's going to get cut out as an outlier. But they are truly second cousins. She matches all the other cousins at the right amount. My mom matches all the other cousins at the right amount. So there is this question of, are they related in a whole nother way? But even so, even if we're at the high end of a second cousin around, 500 some odd centimorgans, really a high end, 500 to 550, I mean, even 600, it's still a huge over 100 centimorgan amount that they're matching through another line. So it certainly is possible that that's happening, but it's still that's still a crazy outlier because it has to mean that, as second cousins, they are still sharing a high amount, because both in my mom's family tree and in this cousin's family tree, we've basically ruled out anything within like a second cousin, third cousin distance. Because if I remember correctly, on her tree, for one, I don't think she was fully Jewish. And then for two, I think it was, her tree was really well built out. Just clicking all over the place. I'll just leave that up. I am hoping that she does ancestry tests too, so I can be sure. Yeah. Okay. She shares 0.68%. Yeah, she should be my dad's half sister, making her my half first cousin once removed, which is well above 0.68%, because 0.68% is going to be what, like 40 something centimorgans, 51 centimorgans. So the way I always like to tell people to think of it, 1% of DNA equates to about 74 centimorgans. So go from there. So yeah, 51 centimorgans is not within the range of a first cousin once removed. We can see that here, at best, maybe a first cousin twice removed, but even then on the very, very low end of things. So yeah. Definitely something weird going on there then. Yeah, Ancestry would never buy 23andMe. We'd then be able to work out the timber algorithm by looking at the shared segments from the previous 23andMe data. Ah, yeah, interesting. There was a thing I saw somebody post recently. I don't remember what it was, but they were talking about the timber algorithm. And I looked at my matches and everything they said basically matched up where like the timber algorithm, I guess, it doesn't seem to really kick in until I think it was 90 centimorgans or so. And then as soon as as soon as you got to matches that were 90 centimorgans unweighted, all of a sudden they had huge drop-offs in huge spikes, I guess would be the better way to say it, of the timber algorithm downgrading things. But yeah, I imagine, I don't know if Ancestry would really worry that much about it necessarily because they don't give us the chromosome browser. So it's, we'd get an idea, but we wouldn't know for sure without a chromosome browser. But yeah, if Ancestry bought the 23andMe database, then yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see really what happens with it. But even now, I mean, even if it does happen, they could just blame the issues not on the timber algorithm or any of the different, those differences could also be coming from the fact that 23andMe's test has a bunch of SNPs that Ancestry is not testing for, as well as Ancestry having a bunch of SNPs they're testing, which 23andMe didn't test for. So that sort of lack of overlap could be an issue that they say, well, it's not all the timber algorithm. Don't forget that. So that could be part of it. But all right. Well, we're coming up to about an hour and a half streaming. Kind of hit the end of questions and stuff. So, I'll kind of, if anyone does have any other questions, let me know. I will talk a little bit more about the wiki tree thing, because it's been a lot of fun. So, oh, that's not a page I want to show. That is not something. I don't think I showed too much that I don't care about, but yeah. Okay, so with the wiki tree challenge, I'm going to keep my eye out for questions too. But with the wiki tree challenge, I talked about the CC7. And so they're looking to connect people within 7 degrees of each other. And so this is a breakdown for mine. And so right now I only have 3 first-degree relatives, which would be my parents and my sibling. 9 second-degree relatives. So these would be siblings-in-law, aunts, uncles, my grandparents. Yeah, because before all I had was my grandparents. And then 3rd degree extends that, and so you can see the numbers. So this was basically the last of before the challenge. So you can see the difference from September 10th to September 17th, where I was adding in all these newer lines to make it so they had more to work with for the challenge. And now we can see what they've been doing with the challenge so far. So, it's a pretty big jump, and there's so much stuff that they could still, actually build out on. Like I know one of them for David Goldberg. Like there's only 2 siblings here, and this is going to be an area where they're really going to be able to build it out, both for. They'll be able to do it for Rebecca. They'll be able to do it for Morris Jacob Goldberg. But on top of that, there's other siblings they haven't added in yet. Like there's a Peretz is a brother. There's a Benjamin is a brother. And then there's a Samuel. All identified largely through DNA testing first and then confirmed through the paper trail for a good amount of them. There's still, some of them not quite as strong, but it's a lot of correlations between like immigration records saying, this person was visiting his brother. So if I remember correctly, my great-grandfather David's brother Peretz, in his immigration records, in the manifest record of him arriving in the U.S., he lists my great-grandfather David as his brother who he's coming to, stay with or whatnot. So, yeah. That's a yeah, that's a big jump over 200. Elaine, I've added 4 or so during the live stream with good sources and all that. Awesome. You taking notes, Elaine? Elaine, during this live stream, not really. I did annotate his Drakowski YouTube a bit. Okay. Yeah, I know you've been working on the Drakowski side. Burke, I found a DNA match, and this individual and I share 51 centimorgans DNA. Is probably Spanish heritage. Can it be IBC or identical by chance? It's certainly possible. You know, I guess depending on the ancestry, I still don't know if you told me your exact ancestry. You told me your admixture breakdowns, if I remember correctly, with the Greek and Italian, it was almost like 50% or something. And so, you know, with a 51 centimorgan DNA match, you're not really getting into like the super small DNA matches, but you're definitely on the kind of lower end. I want to say that's like the top end of a low DNA match. Is like 50 centimorgans. I guess 74 centimorgans maybe is it. But either way, so 51 centimorgans DNA match, that's one where, you know, the amount of DNA doesn't seem to indicate that it's a IBC. And then on top of that, you didn't say anything about the segment data, which is important. You know, if it's 51 centimorgans and there's like 8 segments that it's broken into, then you have a much lower confidence that it is IBD, identical by descent, and you have a much higher confidence that it is IBC, identical by chance, basically not identical by the descent from a similar ancestor, but identical by the chance of the state of the DNA. So there's technically 3 terms that are used here. There's IBD, identical by descent, IBC, identical by chance, and then IBD, or not IBD. Why did I just blank on it? I literally just said it. IB, identical by chance, identical by descent, and identical by state, IBS. And IBS technically is both identical by chance and identical by descent, because identical by state means the DNA between 2 people is identical because of the state of the DNA. Well, the state of the DNA could be that way because they descend from the same ancestors, or it could also be that way because of the chance of the errors that are happening within DNA. So, short story long, basically, 51 centimorgan DNA match is really going to rely more on those segments to get an idea. You know, obviously knowing the population group you're coming from could be a big help too. You know, if it's an endogamous population or if it's similar populations or something. Now, based on what you told me, I don't think that's going to be the case here, because you seem to indicate a much more Southern European, Turkey sort of, not even Southern European, I would even call it more Southeastern European sort of connection versus Iberian, which is Southwestern. Granted, there is connection there. So very rambling at this point, because I'm just kind of trying to explain all sides of it. But the main thing that it comes down to is that, you know, you can't tell if it's IBC or IBD at this point, but you know, if you see that segment data, that'll help. You know, if it's 51 centimorgans and, you know, it's a lot of big segments. By big segments, I mean over 10 centimorgans long. And that's pretty, you know, if it's 51 centimorgans across 3 segments, you probably have a higher chance of it being identical by descent. I'm kind of going by the generic Jewish genetic genealogy idea that basically you're looking for an average segment size of 10 centimorgans or greater. Not really something used outside of or endogamous genetic genealogy like I'm doing now, but still kind of something you could use. But yeah, I wouldn't rule it in or out at this point necessarily. I would just keep an open mind of it could go either way. Irish Williams, Fanny Baruch's profile has been accessed 300,000 times. Interesting. How do you see? Oh yeah, access 648. And then Fanny. Huh. Weird. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder why that is. So, you know, the only thing I can really think of is although I would think this would apply to David as well, but the fact that her granddaughter is a very famous person. But actually, now that I'm thinking of it, she wasn't even connected, but she was mentioned. Let's see, how much was, 279 times. So, yeah, basically, I think I've mentioned this a bunch, so I won't hold back. So my grandfather's sister, Rebecca Lou, Betty Lou, is the mother of the famous Jill St. John, who, I guess Jill Wagner. And I feel like they had a photo. I feel like there was a pretty good photo of them at some point. But Jill St. John, for those who don't know, she was the first American Bond girl in Diamonds Are Forever. Famous redhead, which makes sense, redhead. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. But I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, John Time. Other way around. Long story short, I know, but I was making a short story long. I wasn't making that long story short. I was making that short story long. That's why I said that. I say that whenever I'm rambling. Sometimes I've actually probably cut myself saying that out of a few reactions I've done. Okay, so this was the breakdown that you had: 37 West Asian, 40% Italian. So kind of, I guess I said Southeastern Europe, but Southeastern Europe is also very highly tied to West Asia, which I guess really, if you're coming from a Turkish ancestry sort of thing, which I presume is kind of what you're more leaning at, then the 40% Italian, Greek, or I guess maybe not even Turkish, maybe it is more Greek, or I don't know, just that, Mediterranean area. Around 2 to 5% Ashkenazi in different websites, makes sense. 18% Central Asian, 3% Chinese and Vietnamese. Very interesting. Douglas Huseman, fairly certain FTDNA no longer matches less than 6 centimorgans. So they changed things around years ago. I guess actually it would have been about 2020, 2021, maybe a little later. But what it used to be was with family tree DNA, they would identify a match by, I think they required at least a 6 centimorgan, or actually I'm talking from memory, so I could be wrong. But if I remember it correctly, they required a match to have at least an 8 centimorgan long segment. And then once they had at least an 8 centimorgan long segment, they would count up all segments that were at least 1 centimorgan or larger as part of the total amount, which was a big issue for a lot of people, especially with endogamous populations, because it spiked the DNA greatly. And what a lot of people had found over the years was that once you got below a 6 centimorgan or 7 centimorgan threshold, I think that there's been different studies that have kind of come to slightly different conclusions. But basically, once you get to about a 6 centimorgan or 7 centimorgan threshold, anything below that, the probability of it being a true segment and not being a true segment versus a small false segment, can't talk. The probability of that becoming a true segment versus a false segment is much less. And so a lot of these sites do the cutoff at that point. But family tree DNA did not. So they had the 1 centimorgans for a long time. Then in 2021, 2022, whatever it was, when they changed everything, they did it where you need at least an 8 centimorgan segment to match. And then they count for the total segments, everything 6 centimorgans or larger. I think they also used to have it in their chromosome browser where you could look at, all of the segments that are, 1 centimorgan and 2 and 3. And now I think it's limited to 6 centimorgans is the lowest you could go as well. And there are a lot of people who have argued about using some small segment DNA. And in fact, you know what? I am going to pull this up. I think this is actually kind of a very interesting article that Britt Nicholson wrote a bit ago. Britt Nicholson being the genetic genealogist who developed SegCM, which is a site that I talk about a lot. It's basically it's a relative predictor sort of thing. Basically, you input the amount of DNA you're sharing with somebody, and then it helps you predict what your relationship distance with that person is. So he created that site, but he also does a blog about all sorts of stuff. And he did a blog talking about these small segments and how basically he believes that we're missing out on a ton of data and matching that we could do if we allowed for smaller segment access. Where did he put that? Let me see. Me. Okay. Where is that? I could have sworn I posted that not too long ago. But with small segments, there is an argument for the usefulness of them. Here we go. So I'm going to post a link to the blog in the chat because obviously I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But, oh, that's not working. Why is that not working? Okay. Yeah. Because he had some really good here we go. So here we can see this is kind of where the data really comes from, the idea of it. So here we have how long is the segment, and then how many true identical by descent segments are there, and then how many false IBS or IBC segments are there. Now, with the whole IBS, IBC, IBD thing, I think there's a few different schools of thought on the way to discuss it all. I prefer the whole IBD to talk about true segments, IBC to talk about false segments, and IBS to be the umbrella over the two in a sense. So we get the false positive rates. And so you can see 7 centimorgans, it's at 9.72. 6 centimorgans, it's 19.74. And then at 5 centimorgans, all of a sudden it falls off. But what Britt argues is the fact that even though it does fall off, you still have 52% true segments that could be extremely useful. And that's where I think this comes in. So basically, you know, if we discard 5 centimorgans or below, if it's improperly removed, then this is like the total amount we get, or as opposed to improperly kept. Or yeah, you'll have to read through to get the full gist of it. I think it's a very interesting thing. He wrote this a while ago. Probably, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if this was around when FTDNA did that. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah. So FTDNA released a white paper. We talk about white papers all the time. So here it's on their Family Finder matching, and in this they talk about, you know, which they're going to use. Let me make this bigger so you all can read it. So now they're talking about match classification, all that stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, I should probably close that, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should. Okay. Okay, so it wasn't at least 1 8 centimorgan, it's at least 1 7 centimorgan segment. And then the actual match threshold. So all segments below 6 centimorgans have been removed from the tool to report. Lowest possible match threshold requires at least 1 7 centimorgan segment, and then everything else needs to be at least 6 centimorgans. And so this is kind of what they're talking about, yeah, what they're kind of looking for. And then here they're kind of just talking about, you know, the different segments and what are they going to keep in, what are they not going to keep in, and all of, you know, this. I think they're also talking about SNP overlapping and stuff like that, which is getting into an area that can be helpful in very advanced genetic genealogy, but for I think most genetic genealogists, it's just not going to be that useful. But all right. Yeah, of course, I said like 20 minutes ago, I think I might end it soon. And then 20 minutes later, here I am going on and on and on. So. Dan says, because my own blog was hacked years ago, I never finished my write-up condemning small segments. I created graphs to show why. I believe Debbie K used one of them. I'm assuming you mean Debbie Kennett. So yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to read it. You know, I know this is one of those areas in the genetic genealogy community that I think a lot of people don't realize is a big fight about, you know, the use. Are small segments useful? And if they are useful, to what extent? And there is definitely two main camps. One which Britt, I think, falls into, that, you know, there is a large use for them, and there's a lot more difficulty to deal with dealing with it, but that it can bring something out. And then the other camp, which basically, you know, goes to say that, you know, the usefulness of these small segments is so minimal that, and I could be wrong about this, so maybe Dan, you can make a comment saying exactly kind of more of your main point about it, but that the usefulness of these small segments is so minimal that the amount of time spent in analyzing them and going through them would actually be more of a time wasted than going through all of your other matches that have the better distribution of segments. So yeah. Okay, yeah. An answer to the previous question. So yes, 51 total centimorgans, largest segment 18 centimorgans, shared segments 3. So that's, I would say that's, you're probably dealing with a true match. You know, unless you're coming from, or honestly, even if you're dealing with an endogamous family tree, even in endogamy family trees, like in my own Jewish results, I constantly will find matches that are like 50 centimorgans and across 3 segments. Then I look at their family tree and I am actually able to find a place that we are connected. You know, not always, but I've come to find that in endogamous populations, if I can get a average segment size of 10 centimorgans or more, it's more often falling into the side of an actual match. So, and Bearvar, I find FTDNA split between paternal and maternal matches very accurate. Yeah, I think with FTDNA, what they're basically doing is they're doing a, I almost want to say it's like a mixture between DNA painting and phasing in a sense. Basically, what they're doing is every time you link, or at least maybe now it's changed now that they're doing the whole new thing with the MyHeritage trees, but it used to be, you know, you link your DNA match to your family tree DNA tree. And then once you did that, then all of a sudden it would use that data to then decipher the paternal and maternal matches. So it's basically phasing them, saying, okay, well, this DNA's got to be through maternal because that's the side this cousin's related through. So everybody on those segments, we phase that. And then they match the people that are matching those phase segments in a sense to those different sides. So I'm not surprised that it would be very accurate because it really is. I mean, it's kind of like a DNA painting thing. DNA painting and or not visual phasing, DNA painting and phasing just thrown together in a sense. Gina Galadriel. I should just call you Gabby. Finally able to make it to a live stream in a long while. Wonderful to have you. Granted, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be going. I've said twice now I'm probably going to come to an end soon, but still, glad you're able to make one. Bear Var, some proportion of small segments must come from relatively recent ancestors, just a question of knowing which ones. And I definitely feel like I lean more into the camp of there is a usefulness in these small segments. It's just a matter of we need to figure it out. And maybe the other camp is right that, you know, we'll end up doing all this research and it'll come to nothing. But I know that I've heard from a lot of genetic genealogists who were around in the very early days, like 2000s, like late 90s, where they remember the time where people were telling them you're not going to be able to use autosomal SNPs to do relative matching. That's not going to be helpful because at that time it was all about STRs, you know, STRs being, you know, a series of SNPs that repeat themselves over and over in a sense. And so, you know, I think that was a big thinking. And I know I've heard this from a lot of genetic genealogists who really kind of created the field in a sense that it was citizen scientists fighting true scientists that made genetic genealogy possible. And now here we are today, where genetic genealogy is becoming much more of a bigger thing, and a lot more is being, there's much more, to it. From my understanding, Bennett Greenspan was basically told by a lot of people that he was crazy in various positions, and then he proved them wrong. I don't know the story fully. I've actually thought about that as an interesting video, a history of genetic genealogy. I also thought about a history of genealogy video, which is something that I've thought about as I've been working on a video I've been working on for way too long. Why do historians hate genealogists? That will come out at some point. It's still going to happen, but yeah. Okay, the linking does work. It's just done through the MyHeritage tree. Okay. Yeah. 04 Lightning Fan, how long can a murder victim retain enough DNA for identification? So, well, I guess the question is, are you talking about the suspect, or are you talking about the victim? Because if it's the victim, then that DNA for identification is going to depend on the state of the victim's body, and what available DNA we can get. When I worked in investigative genetic genealogy, one of the things that I learned was, even though teeth hold DNA really, really well, the DNA there is often highly degraded, and it is very difficult to work with. And so, it depends on a lot. And then, it's kind of the same thing if you're talking about the suspect as well. The only difference is, I feel like if you're talking about the suspect, the bigger question is when did this happen and how was the evidence stored? Because, if you're talking about the victim themselves, and it's a matter of the state of the body. If you're talking about the suspect, it's a matter of the state of the evidence. And I think we're probably going to discover that in time. I don't think there's a definitive answer. I imagine that there are probably people that have done studies into this that may be able to give somewhat of a general range of things. I certainly don't know that. But I do know that there have been a lot of cases solved that are a lot older than a lot of people would expect to have cases solved. So, I know that, Othram had a solve years ago when it was the Redgrave research team that was doing the research, and it was the guy from the cave. I don't remember how old that was, but that was like not hundreds of years, but it was over 100 years. I want to say it dated to 19 teens or something. Yeah, Drea, I think I'll do a DNA painting adventure tonight. Been a while since. Definitely always good to do DNA painting adventures. Weeping Scorpion, hi. I know we're approaching the end, but I just want to come in and say hi to everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Well, thank you for jumping in. Always wonderful to have our Faroe Islands representation. So thanks for saying hello. And who knows how much longer I'm going to go. I'm probably going to end it soon. But then again, this is the 4th time I've said that. 5th time? I don't know. I've lost count. Yeah, I would love either of those history of videos. Yeah, those would be a lot of fun. Although those ones would probably take way more research in a different style than I'm used to. I'm used to genealogy research like that. That's going to be reading a lot of history books and stuff, not as much going through actual records, which is the much more fun thing. So, victim. There is a Jane Doe in a local cemetery. Yeah, so that's gonna be something that one look at, what's the type of weather where you live, and then you can find sites that talk about the various, decomposition of bodies in different climate and whatnot. And so, it'll depend on how well did the body, how well is it preserved. They may exhume the coffin and, it's dry skeletal remains with very little possible DNA left. And then that's where they'd be doing DNA extraction and things like that. Or they may exhume and it's oh my God, this is amazing preservation. So it will depend, and then it also may depend on what group is taking the evidence, or what, where is it coming from. I think different states have different laws about what you can use for DNA testing from exhumed remains, but I'm not 100% sure. I know when I worked at DNA labs, we had body parts coming into the lab all the time. I worked remotely, so I was rarely in the lab. It was only a couple of times that I'd go down to Florida and I'd be in the lab. And even then I wasn't really doing anything in the lab other than just being in there for, something to talk or whatever. I wasn't handling evidence or anything. But we had body parts coming in all the time, and yeah. So it'll depend on a few things, but if it's the actual doe themselves, then I think there's a pretty good chance that you'll be able to get DNA from the remains for that, especially considering intelligence, and considering that, with human remains, depending on how much evidence they're able to take, sometimes they can take stuff where, sometimes you're limited where you can only take enough where you only have one or two dry runs. You only have one or two runs to try to extract the DNA. And then if you can't do that, then, good luck. And then in other cases, they may be able to have enough where, they can try multiple times. And it's not just, so there's two steps to the DNA process of creating a genealogy profile. First, there's the DNA extraction part. Which I don't think a lot of us think about too much in the consumer side, because on the consumer side, that's they spin our DNA around really, really fast from the swab or the spit or whatever, and then they extract it that way. But then you've got to remember, like, okay, well, when we're getting DNA evidence, it's not quite the same thing, and pretty similar in some ways, but not quite the same thing as just taking someone's spit or a swab and getting the DNA from there. So there's a DNA extraction of the actual evidence. And so there's, the viability of that DNA itself. And then once you have the DNA extracted, then that needs to be sent off to have the microarray SNP chip run to get the actual profile. And so in both of those sides, there's the possibility of not getting a viable profile. So first, you may try to get an extraction, and you go to do, when we get the extraction, then there's an autosomal STR with the 13 loci that are the typical 13 loci. Sometimes I think maybe they do the 20. I can't remember, but basically they just look to see, is this a viable profile? Is this a profile where we think we can actually get something from it? And once we confirm that it is viable profile, basically, then it needs to be run for microarray. And then there's a question of, is that going to be a viable profile? Because the call rate for that needs to be, over 80% usually. I can't remember if we ever used any like under 80% kits. I think we might have, but with call rates for most DNA kits for consumers, it's 99%. I say it all the time, 1% margin of error is the typical thing with this. And that's when we're talking about the SNPs. So, they're testing about 700,000 SNPs for your DNA test through Ancestry and 23andMe and all of those. But then, when you're trying to do it for, a law enforcement case through, for a doe or victim or whatever, to identify them, then, you get a profile that's 90%. Well, you're not going to be looking at 700,000 SNPs. Now you're going to be looking at 630,000 SNPs with 70,000 SNPs just not read properly or not there. And that's the other thing too, is that, the margin of error too doesn't also include the, there's going to be a few, there's, I don't know. I'm rambling at this point, but there's just a lot of stuff that kind of goes into each thing. And so a lot to really depend upon for that. So hopefully that answers it, but okay. I think with that, I am actually going to end the stream now. I really appreciate everybody joining the stream today. Thank you for all the questions. Big shout out to Spartan Chuckles for the Canadian 5. It's so awesome to hear that you were able to find your biological family, and my content has helped you in doing that. So that's absolutely awesome to hear. But thank you so much to everybody. Definitely, keep your eye out on the WikiTree challenge for those that want to get on the WikiTree challenge. go go on to WikiTree and see how to do that. I think you can still join. And then they're going to be doing in October. What date is it? They're going to be doing a reveal with me on live stream. It'll be at 8:00 Eastern time. So sorry for my European contingency. It's going to be super, super early for you. Where is it? Yeah. So October 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Be doing a live stream with WikiTree where they'll be revealing everything that they found, all this fun stuff. And yeah, so thank you again, everybody. You all have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger.